there certainly is a game that everybody wants to remake. It's a popular occupation nowadays, with many classics being remade, rethought, rejiggered, remastered, recombobulated, re-somethinged. And yet, is that really what we're supposed to be doing? Well, you're gonna find out in the top 7 games that should be remade. And if you're thinking I'm gonna say Planescape because on the background, well, no. What would be the point of remaking Planescape? New graphics? Hell no. The existing ones are great. Better combat? Yeah, sure, but that's not really what the game's about. There's no point in remaking a perfectly functional classic. There's no point in remaking one of the best games ever created. Instead, we should probably focus on remaking the stuff that didn't work out so well, the stuff that had good ideas, the stuff that almost kinda worked, but was just shy of something. Be it controls, be it fluidity, be it interface, bugs, some design issues, something that held it back from being good. Or even if the game itself was kinda horrible, but it had a core idea that was superb. Is that not something better to be brought back to life as it should have been than remastering Skyrim? Well, I'm gonna say yes, so let's get it started with number 7. Aliens Colonial Marines. This game was a train wreck. That was awful. And I gave it a 5 out of 10 simply because there was that one level where you didn't have any weapons and you just had to run around, hide, and hope the blind aliens don't kill you. Sure, it wasn't well implemented, but hey, at least it was something. But this game could have been and should have been and was sold as being much more. Even more so, its origins were even more glorious. At the beginning, this was gonna be a 4-player, or at least a 4-character cooperative game where you would play a bunch of Colonial Marines, a squad of Marines that were up against the most perfectly evolved killing machine in the universe, the Xenomorph. Not just one, a bunch of them. Yeah, we've had Alien versus Predator games, a lot of them good, where you could play as a Marine, but this was a different kind of experience. This was to be focused on the Marine, where you would have to go around welding doors, setting up traps, making sure your buddy wasn't being devoured by a Xenomorph that just jumped out of the ceiling. It's an idea that's worth re-exploring in a new game. A better game, one that's not made by assholes, Gearbox. One that takes that core idea of you and 3 other people playing as Colonial Marines. Nature's mistake, as some people may call them in games like this. Under-equipped, outnumbered, out of luck, and just trying to survive. Yeah, you could basically call it sort of a rip-off of Left 4 Dead, or with the whole welding aspect of Killing Floor, but if it's well made enough, then yeah, this could be a great game. Number 6. Alpha Protocol. Oh, where to begin? Obsidian's foray into espionage RPG was troubled. As an RPG, it had problems. As a game, it had problems in general, and the story could have used a few more passes, but the core idea of it is superb. This is, without a doubt, one of the best espionage stories we have. You are dumped into a world so murky that you have no idea who you are working for, who your allies are, who anyone in this game even has allegiance to. And you have to convince them to work for you, you have to convince them to help you, you have to convince them to maybe not do something awful. And to do that, you have to get to know them, you have to understand them, you have to talk to them on their level. Now, the rest of the game was a miserable pile of underdeveloped levels and stupid enemies, but the core idea of that espionage, that component, that interaction with those characters, that was superb. And that deserves a better game. That deserves to be remade, rebuilt into a game that is worthy of being called a great espionage RPG. The dialogue component, that was, well, if the dialogue component had actual dialogue options and not the suave, asshole, blunt, something else, I don't know, don't remember, options. With some tweaking, with levels that aren't completely awful and made in 2D for a 3D game, with better combat, with better missions, this could be a superb game. And not just Alpha Protocol. Also, we could probably use a different main character and better jokes. Number 5. The Crew. When Ubisoft revealed this game, it looked amazing. They promised, they showed asymmetrical racing between two different classes of cars. One of them an off-roader, one of them a supercar, both participating in the same event. You know what we didn't get in the final game, right? Exactly that. Also, they sort of built up that aspect where you could challenge rival crews and you would chase each other and ram each other and you would do some kind of heist thing. Then that's not something you see all that often in a game. Neither is the cross-class racing. There's just 3 of them and 100 missions. But yeah, the crew looked amazing when they announced it. It turned out to be shit, like complete and utter drivel. The driving mechanics were akin to big rigs over-the-road racing when it was released. It's still not that great. It barely recognizes a steering wheel, but you gotta appreciate some things about it. Some things like the world it has. Sure, it's a miniaturized version of the USA, but it's superb, and just driving through it is amazing. Now, if only you could actually make a racing MMO in that world. Like one MMO where the cars that the other players have can race against your car in that world, with no limits, with no instances, with no goddamn awful story written by hacks that should be hung by their knees from the roof of a very short building and not actually harmed, just reminded that they are idiots. An open world MMO racer where you could actually race in the open world, where you could do cross-country races with multiple classes of vehicles, where a supercar, where a goddamn LaFerrari could race against a Hummer H2, a game where, you know, you would really never drive alone, which is something you can say about the crew because, you know, Ubisoft servers, where even if you're in the same party with your friends, odds are you're still driving alone because the servers can actually put you two together even though you're in the same goddamn city. A crew remade, a crew rebuilt, probably not by Ubisoft. They, unless the fear of Vivendi gets into them so hard that they will actually try and make a good game, I don't see them being able to do a good game out of this. Number 4. XCOM The Bureau. When the revelation of a first-person shooter XCOM was revealed to the world, people were not entirely happy, which is understandable. They were even less happy when that first-person shooter turned into a third-person shooter that was considerably crappier. Like a second-rate Mass Effect. No, I take it back. A second-rate Mass Effect 2, which is even worse. But it did have some good ideas. The last version that came out, the third-person shooter one, actually had a good foundation for its story. The basis of the story, the premise, was astounding. It is probably one of the best ideas for a game ever made. It is one that explains everything, it is one that makes sense, it is one that is out of left field completely and functions superbly. They cock it up in the end, but still, I was amazed by it. And the first version they showed, it was basically BioShock in XCOM. And honestly, I would play BioShock in XCOM. You take the gameplay of BioShock, you put it in a setting akin to XCOM with randomly generated missions, with ever-increasing stakes, with a general dread that people are being replaced, that people are being kidnapped, with the paranoia, the fear of the unknown, of the alien. And you could have a goddamn amazing game. But they cocked it up completely. So this concept needs to breathe new life. This thing needs to be remade. It must live. Because it sounded so good in my head right now. Number 3. Star Wars Galaxies. Now, for those not in the know, there was a time when Star Wars Galaxies was amazeballs. If you've been around the internet for, I don't know, the last 10 years, you've not seen it. It died about 4 or 5 years ago when the Old Republic was released, but truthfully it died in and around the year 2005 or 2006. That's when they decided to turn it into World of Warcraft and not into what it originally was. You see, this game was an MMO, very different than what we now call an MMO. Originally it wasn't even a Star Wars game, it was a Wing Commander game, so it wasn't tied to the whole Dark Force, Light Force. What shall we choose? Let's be a beige Jedi that breaks all the rules and is super cool and shapes all the ladies. Instead, it was an MMO for a future age that never came. An MMO where the class you chose drastically changed the gameplay. You had non-combat roles. You had roles that were just created to interact with other players. Well, at least to interact with their economy. It was a game about players building their own universe in Star Wars. And grinding, a lot of grinding, which was kind of the crappy aspect of it. The interface too was kind of crappy. A lot of it was kind of crappy. But the core idea that you could have an MMO like that, with that amount of freedom, where you could just be a dancer and still be in a goddamn game, not in a chat room. And the idea of a game like this, of an MMO like this, where players could build cities, where you would have roles so different that it's like playing a completely separate game, yet you're still in the game. This idea needs to be reborn. It needs to have another chance, and it probably is currently having one during the development of some unknown MMO that's gonna die in the next couple of minutes, like many have before, but it needs something more. It needs an actual chance, and let's face it, that probably won't happen. Number 2, Ultima 4 through 6. The Ultima games are classics. They are, without a doubt, some of the best games ever made, but Ultima 4 through 6 are not necessarily the easiest games to play, or some would say even the most fun games to play. And yet, there is something that needs to be remade. Maybe not the games themselves, but their core idea. I've spent the last year discussing about the story of these Ultima games, what they signified, what they tried to convey, and honestly, that is what is needed. That is something that needs to be remade for today's audience. A story of philosophy, a story of building a religion, a story of building the fundamental principles of government, of ethics, of morality in a world, of becoming the messiah figure, but not in the shitty way like in Mass Effect, but in a way that's actually well made. That's what Ultima 4 was about. It was about beating your own demons, about setting an example to everyone around you, showing that the light can shine brightest if you try hard enough. And Ultima 5 was the corruption of that light. It was enforcing that morality, that code of ethics upon pain of even death. And Ultima 6 is its destruction, revealing that the basis of it was a sham all along. How can it continue then? How can it still be good if the basis of it was entirely false, built upon suffering, the suffering of others, of innocence? Well, that's what you should make people think about. That's why this needs to be remade. That's why this needs to have a new implementation and a new series of games. Again, it should be 3 games, maybe not long ones, maybe not high budget ones, but it should be remade. Now, there was a remake of Ultima 4, but since it was made by Electronic Arts, it completely missed the boat and was kinda crap. Though to be fair, the developer basically said that they got the call to remake Ultima 4, he asked what the budget was, and he basically got the answer, well, you've got 2 spoons, 1 is broken. So it probably won't be a game from EA and probably not an Ultima game. I wonder how that Shrouds thing is coming along. And number 1 is Spore. Now here's the fun fact, Spore in itself is sort of a remake of Sim Earth, but a lesser one. And it wasn't supposed to be a lesser one, but Electronic Arts fucked it. They decided to make it all cutesy wootsy for the kiddies and not actually be as good as it could have been. The core concept is there, like you control a species from being a single cell to conquering space. And they had the tech even. You had procedurally generated planets, a galaxy worth of planets, of species, of things to explore, to see, to pretend it was all invented by No Man's Sky and give them a BAFTA for technical achievements. The idea of Spore is something that needs to be revisited. It's something that needs to be recreated, but this time to its fullest. This time with more depth into everything. With the single cell stage, with the primitive creature stage, enhanced, improved. The tribal stage could be its own goddamn game. The civilization stage as well. And space exploration, yeah, you could make space empires into that. You could make Master of Orion. Sure, that sounds like a daunting task that would require basically making about 5 games into one, but tell me that that doesn't seem like something you would play. Being able to decide, being able to control the destiny, the path, the evolution of a species. You get to decide the fate of everything in that world, every creature on that planet, and then everything in the galaxy. You begin as their god, and in the end you become the god of all things. And hey, there could be rival gods trying to do the same thing, which is something that didn't happen in Spore, so it would be a kind of a black and white Spore-ish kind of affair, though you maybe not are a little god, just the manifestation of a hidden will. It's a gamey sort of thing, you gotta understand that. Well, that would be it for the top 7 games that should be remade. If you've got one, please say so in the comments. If you've got a game that you kinda liked where it was going up to a point, that had an idea that you enjoyed and thought to yourself, you know, this in a better game could have worked, don't hesitate to tell me, no matter how old the game is. I would have actually put Shadow of Mordor here as well, but Shadow of War seems like it's trying to compensate for the crappy combat and the absolutely stupid way that exploration was made in that god-awful Ubisoft checklist kind of affair. So I'm hoping that actually pans out. And if it doesn't, you can add it here as number 8.